Now, sweet. So we're recording, so we can refer back to this for all the knowledge goodies later. We've got Miroslava. She's in the graphic design program and is an awesome human. And Sean, one of our instructors in the digital filmmaking program. He edits, he shoots, and he is a part-time dolphin trainer. So that's that. And we should probably start with, I'll introduce Lyle. Lyle, raise your hand or wave or something. Yay, so that's Lyle. Lyle is a genius, basically. He's an editing and video production extraordinaire. And he helped produce a Super Bowl commercial. So Lyle was one of my, well, he wasn't in my grade. When I was in 12th grade, he was in 9th grade, but we did both take TV production together. And it was back when we were using Final Cut Pro, not Premiere, and we had to like log mini DV tapes. It was back in the log and transfer days. So, you know, I would be editing on the computer and I just went to Lyle for everything. Like every 5 minutes, I was like, hey, Lyle, I don't know how to keyframe. Hey, Lyle, what does this button do? Like, and he would just be walking back and forth, helping all the students. And I'm like, how did this little 9th grader, like, how does he know so much? But if it wasn't for Lyle, I literally wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So that's Lyle.
Well, thank you, Lyle.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very humbled to be here and really appreciate you guys allowing me to speak today. Yeah. But yeah, like as Nakeisha said, I started out really into TV production and did that all through high school. But then in college, I made the decision to kind of change my career path. And instead I majored in marketing and thus launched my career in marketing and specifically in branding. And today I am one of the brand managers for Southeastern Grocers, which is the parent company of Winn-Dixie. If you guys are familiar with that brand, we're primarily in the Southeast, in Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. But with that, and with my history of video editing and kind of the understanding of kind of that world, I grew, through the ranks of the corporate world, and my position now, I'm over all of our video production and production scheduling and working with our creative agency among different cross-functional teams in the corporate world. So lots of different teams and different tech topics that I actually touch, which is really fun.
With an interest, I mean, I know you started off really interested in video production. What made you switch to marketing?
I took a couple of classes at our state college, local state college, and I actually worked, let me back up. I actually worked for Winn-Dixie in the stores for 6 years before graduating with my marketing degree. And as I worked in the stores, I became really passionate about kind of how you articulate different advertising promos and how you articulate kind of the back end of getting people to buy more stuff, right? Yeah. And with that, I thought it would be really interesting to take a marketing course, and I took an intro marketing course and really fell in love with the kind of conceptual and the strategy behind that. And it felt like a really natural step for me to step away, not necessarily step away because it's still very much, a hobby of mine, but step into a different kind of realm that I could apply a lot of what I learned in the editing universe over into the marketing universe.
Just to see who we've got here, everybody sort of go around and say your name and your degree program. So let's start with Ray.
I'm Ray. I'm in digital filmmaking.
Sweet. John?
I'm in Associates of Music Production.
Cool. We got Trent's an instructor. Patty?
I'm Patty. I'm with in digital filmmaking online.
Sweet. Next is Kiera.
Hi, my name is Kiera, and I think I'm also the digital filmmaking online for the LA Film School.
Sweet. Tyler, what up, man?
Hey, what up? Actually, I'm in music production, but I just love checking it out. Any knowledge is power.
Oh, you'll need it for music production. All of you are going to need marketing skills, and we'll get into why. Tyson, one of my favorites. Hi, Tyson. Tell everybody what degree program you're in.
Digital filmmaking.
Sweet. And Taylor?
I am in digital filmmaking as well.
Awesome. Sean's one of our instructors in digital filmmaking. Miroslava?
Hi, I'm Miroslava. I'm in graphic design.
And Kevin?
Hi, I'm actually your career development advisor for the graphic design program. So I just wanted to check this out and see what you all are up to.
You're not even a student.
I am not, but I'm going to gather valuable experience that will help the students.
Awesome. Well, he's gathering information. Okay, so talking about marketing. When you guys think about marketing, what comes to mind?
Sales.
Sales, okay.
Cheesy commercials.
Cheesy commercials, all right. I feel you on that one. Ray, did you just answer that with branding? You did. Okay, so branding.
To get your brand and what you want to do out there.
Yeah.
As far as I can get it there.
Okay. Catchy designs of that brand. That's good. That makes sense because graphic design. So good. Catchy designs. Anybody else?
What about like the interpretation, like what they, your interpretation of like the brand or the market, what you're trying to, on the other side of the coin, not just trying to sell it for this. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to make it nice to please this audience or that audience. It's, you kind of think it from the other side.
Yeah, from the customer side, which is a good, very good thing to keep in mind. So those are all really good answers, and I feel like they're all a part of the answer. So Lyle, brand and advertising, what is that?
So they're not the same. So when you think of a brand, right, it's how you position yourself or your company, and it's really the brand's personality is their branding. Whereas advertising, it's how you convey yourself to your target customers. And when you think about your brands, you really have to have like an emotional connection with them. Because you have either an emotional connection with a brand or you have a practical connection with a brand. And the most successful brands build on having that emotional connection with their customers. So when you're able to unlock that emotional connection with a customer, they become more invested with your brand and become advocates and are less likely to actually go to another competitor on the regular. I'll give you an example. So like with Coke versus Pepsi, right? So both are practically the same products. We can all kind of put aside the big debates. So no hard feelings on this call, but generally speaking, they're both colas, right? And, personally, I have a practical relationship with both of them. If I want a cola, I don't necessarily seek out one or the other. But personally, I feel more of an emotional relationship with Coke, and it almost feels more prestigious to have that red can over that blue can, right? So if I had the option to choose one over the other, I would choose Coke. And that's building an emotional connection, and that is branding, right?
That's awesome. Now, keep that in mind. Everybody lock that in your head, because I know, at least in the digital filmmaking program, but this is probably true of other programs too. It's all about storytelling. It's about, you're not just, it's always good when you're not just selling a product, but you're telling a story. So that's the emotional connection that he's talking about. So that was an extremely good explanation. So let's talk about why marketing is important to know for personal branding, you know, as a creative? Like, why is that important to us as creatives?
I'm still
Well,
kind
you-
of confused on, oh,
Okay.
sorry.
No,
No,
go
go ahead.
ahead, ask questions.
I'm still just confused on understanding the whole branding thing.
Like branding versus advertising?
Yeah, it's just kind of a lot for me to kind of obtain, I guess.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no, that's fine because it's a new concept. So to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong or fill in the gaps or whatever, Lyle, it seems like an advertisement would be, it's advertising your brand. Is that kind of how it is? Maybe you can explain it better, Lyle.
Yeah, like your brand is your personality. It's the brand's personality, right? So everyone on this call has their own brands. They're individuals. And when we think about major companies, they are, for the sake of this argument, individuals. They have a specific way they speak. They have a specific product that they deliver to their customers, and they have their personality. Whereas advertising is simply using paid vehicles to get people to know that brand. So you're kind of just advertising.
Yeah, it's like, like for example, let me think of a really good commercial. Okay, so because I'm weird, but during the Super Bowl years ago, there was a commercial that is just one of my favorite commercials, but it's also so strange that it's probably terrifying. Do you anyone remember Puppy Monkey Baby? From, yeah, right, we're on the same wavelength. Remember Puppy Monkey Baby? It was the monkey with the baby diaper, and it was what was it, Mountain Dew? Like, yeah, it was a Mountain Dew commercial. So the advertisement was the television advertisement. It was putting that quirky personality on TV. The brand of Mountain Dew was like, it's strange, it's full of energy, it's colorful, it's quirky, it's weird. So the brand was kind of like, all right, this is Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew is like full of energy and not afraid to be weird. And then they advertised that brand, like the not afraid to be weird, the quirkiness, they advertised it on TV. Does that kind of make sense to you?
I think another way to kind of help break it down a little bit as well. Sorry, I worked in video, like marketing for a big company too before coming to this, to really kind of break down branding. And again, just totally correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert, but if you really want to break it down simply, like a company's brand, like if they use very specific fonts and very specific colors. So when we're talking about, like Lyle's talking about the identity of it, it's like when he says Coke, it's like that red is Coke.
Yeah.
And that font is Coke. So if you're working, for instance, in video production for a company and working on their branding, say you're making graphics for that company, you have an assigned set of colors that's what you can do for their brand. You have certain fonts that you can use for their brand. And it's almost like, I don't want to say you don't have as much creative freedom, but you need to do things that fit within their identity of the company. So like, for instance, I worked for a very large retirement community, and we had we had 3 different fonts that we could use for their branding. We had a set of 7 different colors we could use for their branding of their fonts. We had a set style of music we could use within their branding, because that's what fit their identity of the company. If that, I don't know if that helps.
Oh, that's awesome. Sense. And sort of like Geico, the Geico Gecko, you know what I mean? Or Allstate, the Allstate, are you in good hands? It's these iconic things that when you see this or hear this, you think of that company,
Mm-hmm. Just like the Golden Arches at McDonald's. The Golden Arches is a brand of theirs. That's part of their branding.
Yeah, they advertise it on TV, radio, YouTube, different things. But does that kind of answer your question, Kiera, a little bit?
Yeah, that helps me understand it a lot better. Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else have questions before we move on? Oh, hi, Miriam. Didn't even see you there. Okay, so with marketing and branding, you obviously have an audience. Now you can advertise to everyone. Well, you can't really, because there's such a wide variety of people and tastes and likes and dislikes. So it's best to pick a target audience. So Lyle, do you want to talk about like, what it's like to define a target audience? What is that?
So it's always good to really hone in on who you're trying to target, because if you don't necessarily have specifically who you're wanting to speak to, you ultimately are doing not a great job at talking to anyone. So you can't be everything to everyone. And if you try, you ultimately won't resonate with anyone because of that. So if you're able to focus on a specific target audience, whether that's a specific demographic, an age, area of the country, whatever that is, and if you're able to make that target audience really like you and really resonate with your brand message and your audience, then they will become really big advocates of your brands and ultimately become repeat customers. Whereas, if you don't have a target audience and it's not clearly defined, you end up being inconsistent with your messaging and your brand because you're trying to target way too many people with what you're trying to say. And ultimately, it kind of goes back to the previous bit about having a brand and being consistent in the way you're speaking to customers. Because if you're not consistent with the way you're speaking to customers, then it's not going to be effective communication.
Yeah, and they don't know what services you're offering. So, for example, I used to work for a book publishing company, and I did their video trailers. So I wrote out this questionnaire that I would send to each of the authors to try and get an idea for what kind of video they wanted. And one of the questions on that questionnaire was, who's your target audience? Now, so many of them, because they want everyone to read their book, they're like, everyone's my target audience. So there's a difference between an audience and a target audience, or even, I guess you could even say a desired audience and a target audience. So you could want, like, if we're talking about the book publishing people or the authors, you could want everybody to read your book, but you can't advertise to everyone at the same time. Like a 5-year-old, you can't advertise to a 5-year-old the same way you would a 35-year-old or a 55-year-old. So, when you're advertising to clients, like Lyle said, branding is huge. So especially for me, when I was doing, primarily freelance, I had the good advice to like pick a niche. Maybe you do event promos. So make your Vimeo page, like put all your event promos on there, or on your website, put all your event promos. Don't necessarily have everything you've ever edited, because then people don't know what service you provide. It might seem like you want to put everything on there, but really narrowing it down and defining like a target is going to help you market yourself in a more effective way. Correct, Lyle?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because ultimately what you want to be known for is what you're able to provide time and time again on a consistent basis to your customers. And you have to keep in mind too, is as you build up your customer base, there'll be a halo effect to where they'll have a project to where, they need a promo done and you're able to execute that, but the project turns into doing X, Y, and Z, and there's this halo effect where you can still help them out with specific asks, but in terms of how they found you was through your expertise within promos.
Yeah. So any questions on that so far? I feel like I'm yelling, but I think that's just how loud my voice is. I don't know. I can never tell the level of my voice. People say I talk very loud. Also don't know how to whisper, but that's besides the point. So there's something you talked to me about when we first talked about, doing this live session. You talked about defining a brief, and we were going to use the Super Bowl commercial. First of all, the Super Bowl commercial that he helped produce is, has anybody seen the what is it called? The Winn Twins?
The Win-Win Twins.
The Win-Win Twins. It's like and we'll show you. I'll send you the link so you can watch it. But it's the sort of goofy guys that wear sweatbands in Winn-Dixie, and it's It's very song and dance. You'll probably recognize it when you see it. But that's the Super Bowl commercial he helped produce. So talk to me about defining a brief and sort of what you did with that Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, so before anything can ever be done with any project, you really have to have a really solid brief, because ultimately there's no such thing as bad creative. There's only a bad brief.
What's a brief now?
I'm sorry?
What's a brief?
Now, a brief is the basically scope of work. It's your context. It includes everything that you're trying to do. So it includes your goals, your restrictions, your considerations, the background of the project, your budgets. It includes just basically what you're trying to do, and your timing, and all the context that will arm the creatives to execute what you're trying to do.
Does it also have like a summary of your idea? Sort of like in like film production, we call it a treatment. Is it kind of like, does it include like a summary of, maybe a little paragraph summary or something of like, here's my idea for the commercial?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. So where I'm talking about brief. So in terms of my position, I'm kind of at a step higher than that, because
you're the next step after that.
Yeah, so the next step is coming up with a creative execution that fits the brief. So the brief is the business problem and what we're trying to fix. So for the Super Bowl ad specifically, we were trying to garner up awareness of the Winn-Dixie brand, and we wanted it to be in a distinct way. And then secondly, a secondary message was to reinforce our loyalty offer, which was a 20x coupon, points coupon, and communicate that offer. So within that brief, it also included considerations that they had to use the Win-Win twins. It had to be within the store. It had to be football themed. And basically, it's the guardrails
Right.
that the creatives then ultimately, and the producers and directors ultimately leverage to create a treatment or a creative execution that would fit that brief.
Okay.
Because ultimately,
I see your hand, Ray. We're going to get to you.
yeah. So ultimately, what you want to do is make sure that you don't pull the cart before the horse, right? You can't come up with a cool creative idea without understanding what you're trying to convey and how you're trying what you're trying to convey in what kind of general sense. Otherwise, you'll find yourself trying to shoehorn a creative idea into a concept that doesn't necessarily fit the messaging goals of a brief.
Yeah, sort of square peg, round hole kind of deal. Yeah, Ray?
So is a brief similar to like a pitch deck?
So yeah, go ahead. It's like when you pitch your idea. Is it kind of like that, or?
It's what you get to develop a pitch deck.
Okay.
So
it's
you
the
can't develop a pitch deck if you don't know what goals you're trying to hit, right? So in order for you to develop a pitch deck, you have to understand what the problem you're trying to address is.
Yeah. So for me, with my my questionnaire that I send to my clients, I think the first three is so the first one is like, define in 5 sentences. At least 5 sentences, describe your product, event, or whatever it is you're trying to do. You describe that in 5 sentences, and then it's what information do you want the audience to walk away with after watching the video? What's the tone of your video? Is it dramatic? Is it motivational? Is it uplifting? Is it comedic? Then we go to the target audience. So is that kind of like similar things that you go into with defining a brief?
That is that form that you send them is forcing them to create a brief. That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so that's a good thing to keep in mind when a client asks you to do a video, because a lot of times clients, and not just video, it could be graphic, or if somebody wants you to write a jingle, for those of you who are in music production, or a score, these are things that the client's not thinking about. So it's on us as the creatives to think about so that they actually get what they want, because they don't often actually know what they're asking for. Is that Tyson that just raised his hand? No, it's not. I don't know. Yeah, Tyler.
No,
Did you raise your hand?
I did. I was wondering with that, at any time, is there a prediction about like how much it's gonna make and that, or is that a whole separate thing from that? Like, I think it's, it's gonna do this, or I'm gonna at least get 100 people, or, is it not like that?
Is
Do
that
you know
like
what I'm
how,
saying?
like a prediction of how many people it's going to reach?
Yeah, and like what, like, do you get what I mean? I just didn't know if there was another side to that. Like, sometimes there's like, all right, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and we're gonna reach here, and then we're
It's kind of the
the
target audience.
and merchandise, we're gonna at least get $500, and we could be able to get more for advertising if, like, so that's what I was thinking.
Is that, do you have like a goal of how many people, or like, is that part of the target audience, or is that just not something that
What that's called is a KPI, which is a key performance indicator, and that is included in the brief. So within that, like for the Super Bowl ad specifically, we had a specific redemption rate that we wanted to see for that coupon, and there was within the media plan and the Super Bowl ads themselves, it was a consideration that it was going to reach X number of people. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So speaking of the Super Bowl ad, let's watch the Super Bowl ad, and then I'll send you one more that Lyle did that's actually his favorite, because he liked the Christmas better than the Super Bowl, but I probably like the Christmas a little better than the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl one was awesome. So you guys will probably recognize this. I saw it the first time on Hulu, because Hulu always cuts the commercials. So I saw this commercial and I thought it was cute, and I saw it over and over again. And then I saw Lyle post on Facebook that he had helped produce it. And I was like, what? Like, I immediately contacted our old TV production instructor and was like, look, some of your students amounted to something. So like, it was really awesome. So go ahead and watch this, and mute yourself while you watch it, and give us a thumbs up when you're done, either like this or in the reactions. I sent it in the chat. Got a thumbs up from Patty and Miroslava. Ray, Sean.
Great work, man. That was a fun commercial.
Yeah, that was awesome. Now I recognized them when I saw it.
Yeah, also looks like Ray had sent the Puppy Monkey Baby commercial, so please watch that and enjoy how weird my taste in things are, because that song is one of my alarm clock tones. I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, so yeah, that was the Super Bowl commercial. So that actually aired during the Super Bowl, which is awesome. Like, I don't know what I would do if I mean, that would just be like, I'd wake up every morning and just be proud of myself every single day. I would. And then I'd walk around and look at my cat and be like, aren't you proud of me? I'm proud of me. And that would be my life. So let's watch the Christmas one, because that one's really cute too. I love it. So here comes the Christmas one, and then I'll send the like the channel so you guys can just hang on to it. But here's the Christmas one. Same thing, thumbs up when you're done. Getting a bunch of thumbs up here. I think my favorite thing was the one of my favorite parts of the decor was the fog on the floor. That was a nice touch. My favorite part was I forgot the rolls, because that happens to me all the time where I'll forget something and then I'll just awkwardly leave my cart at the checkout, and I'm like running through the store to find the one item. But the Win-Win twins are so charismatic. I absolutely love them. And I'll send the channel so you can, if you want to watch a bunch of cool Winn-Dixie commercials. Because the cool thing about it is it's not cheesy. It's imaginative and it has a story. And it's very, very well branded. So now when you see the Win-Win twins, you immediately think of Winn-Dixie. So that's a really good branding piece, because that's something you can take and put on t-shirts or mugs or hats. Do you still have any of those beanies? Those Winn-Dixie beanies? Did you get to keep one?
Yeah, we're actually working with our merchandising team to actually sell them in the stores this upcoming holiday, which is really
so
fun.
many. See, it's so like it's such good branding, because you can have so many different avenues that you can go down with that. And
So
yeah, good.
I actually have a question, Nakeisha, if you don't mind. So we were talking about branding, and we're talking about like McDonald's has the yellow arches and Coke has red and their fonts. So looking at these two ads, what do you guys think are, parts of the Winn-Dixie brand, or the consistencies you saw from ad to ad?
The red and white coloring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The check mark.
Yeah.
Check.
Oh,
Miroslava, how about you? You're a graphic designer. So what do you notice about any of the graphic stuff?
I noticed that it had like a bunch of like reds and whites, like they said, and it had like the check mark as well too. So kind of like check off the list, like on your supermarket list, how you have like a list, food list, and you check off something.
What about both ads starting out with, well, hello, Winn-Dixie?
yeah.
Catchphrase. That's awesome.
Catchphrase. Yeah.
And that's good for you guys too, as creatives, when you're marketing yourselves. Even if you have a slogan or a catchphrase, there's just something memorable that would stick in a client's head, and that would easily remind them of you and your maybe self-proprietary business, or your brand. So you can look at probably in the end, it always says win-win. Yes, Viviana. That's a good thing to point out too. And Tyler says, just like Food Lion, it's a supermarket. Yeah, I remember Food Lion from, I don't know where they are anymore. If anybody has,
like they're in the south. They're in the south, like they're in the south, like like Chick-fil-A and certain things. Like Chick-fil-A, there used to be a pizza place. Every time I used to go in, they'd be like, Chick-fil-A, well, welcome to Chick-fil-A, and scream it. And I would like think that like marketing. I'm seeing, it's weird. I was like clicking like a Jenga puzzle.
Yeah,
it's crazy because it's catchy, and it's like, hey, listen, I went there and they did this.
Yeah.
And like talking about it to my friend, and this, and word of mouth is the best advertisement that there is. If you go somewhere and eat food at a bad restaurant, you make sure you tell everybody.
Yeah.
For like, if you go to a restaurant and you have good food and it was amazing, you tell nobody. So it's like sometimes with marketing, and it's really hard because I worked in a restaurant. So it's like sometimes like you just doing good food and everything, but sometimes it's crazy though. It's amazing.
For sure. Yeah, it's all really important. So Lyle, what was your role in that Super Bowl commercial, or any of those commercials?
So I was the client, right? Everyone's favorite.
Yeah,
everyone's favorite person to work with. So we as a brand, so Winn-Dixie filled out a brief, and I was the one that filled that out. I worked with the internal business partners and all the different departments to fill out the brief, all the context, all the things we wanted to execute on, the key performance indicators or KPIs that we wanted to hit. And I submitted that to our creative agency. And with that brief, the creative agency came back with a number of different treatments in different ways they could execute on that brief. And ultimately, after some back and forth, we chose a route to go down. And then at that point, we developed the script and all the additional kind of deliverables that we had as part of the brief. So we had like 15s. And if you go to the YouTube page, there's like a 2-minute long, like big game recap, funny skit that we did as part of the project as well. So we developed the scripts, the storyboards, and I got the appropriate approvals on my side, worked with like our legal department and the other team members in the marketing team to kind of get it across the approval threshold, if whatever you want to call it. And then once we were script locked and storyboards were locked in, at that point, we began the pre-production work, is what we kind of defined as pre-production work, which is once the script's locked, all like the logistics of securing which store we want to film in, securing the director works on securing all the lighting and cameras, and starts looking at camera angles and so on and so forth. And
typically in film, that would be the producer, but this is a little more small scale, so the director did that for this.
No, we had a producer. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Thank you for jumping in there. So we had our director, we had our producer, and a whole team of people that I cannot remember their titles off the top of my head, but they're a very hardworking bunch, and worked with them to kind of get everything coordinated, and then we filmed it. So we filmed it overnight in one of our stores. It was a 2-night shoot, and I was the ones over in Video Village. So we had the scripts, and we ran through a couple of takes, and then the director would come over and we would give him our feedback. He would give us his feedback, and just kind of had a collaborative process throughout the entire filming. And then went scene by scene that way. And then I don't know if you want me to keep going, or if you want to pause, Nakeisha.
Oh yeah, no, I was just, Miroslava has to leave, so I was just saying bye.
Oh yeah.
But so we talked about all that kind of goes into context, scope, and budget, which is what you were talking about with the role. But you said something that sort of made me think of the next thing we wanted to talk about, which was developing a creative concept and executing it to fit a brief. So that's, not shoehorning the, you're not round peg, square hole kind of deal. So just kind of on that note, your client, a lot of the times, or even us, if we aren't careful, can get creatively and emotionally attached to an idea, rather than serving the purpose of the either graphic or advertisement or or music piece or whatever you want to call it. I get clients all the time that get emotionally attached to a specific idea, but that idea doesn't convey, or that method or whatever doesn't convey the idea that they're trying to bring across. They want to advertise to kids, but they're really attached to a very adult idea, or they want to advertise in a way that will actually maybe sell their book or their product or whatever, but they have this idea that really only means something to them, or I'll get students who add a shot into their edit, or they really want to keep this scene in their film, but it only means something to them. And if you're not thinking objectively, you're going to lose your audience because you're emotionally attached to an idea. So I think that's why briefs are important, because it gives you guidelines. Your idea has to fit within these guidelines in order for you to get your point across, or accomplish your goal, or sell your product, or convey this set of information. Kiera has a question. Go ahead.
I'm just having a bad connection. It's
sorry,
breaking out a lot. I was just wondering if that was my phone or just I just have a bad connection.
Yeah, it's all stable on my end. I don't know if anybody else is having issues.
It's fine here.
Mine's
Yeah,
fine.
so that might just be your phone.
I think it's my phone.
Maybe try going close
Can
to
I?
the router. Can you what?
Sorry. I was just wondering because it's just a really bad connection. If I could log off for today.
Yeah,
Or
you're not
the-
far here. Yeah, we're
Oh,
recording it,
okay.
so, you know, like, I'm not even your teacher. You're fine. Like,
Okay.
yeah, you can watch the recording.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, so and
We out here keeping prisoners.
yeah, that was so cute. Like, can I leave? Yeah, this isn't even a class. This is an
You can be dismissed. Yes, it's all right.
it's fine. So
We don't have to be here. Oh, okay.
so
Are we
I
getting
love that
graded
you
on
guys
this for being showing up?
Oh yeah, I was about to say, am I getting credit for this too?
get
Because
extra
I thought it
life
just
credit. This is
I want
yeah,
credit for it.
that's what that is. Extra life credit. You get the,
you get
the
life
knowledge
credit.
power.
You'll actually
Exactly.
do something with your lives after graduation. So
So in case you did something wrong in a past assignment, this goes toward it.
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
it's so
saying.
funny because when I graduated film school, like I knew how to do film, but I didn't know how to market anything, and that's why most creatives, it's where the term starving artist comes from, because we know how to do our craft, we just don't know how to run a business. So this is going to help you with the business side of things. She says this is such a great group. That's funny. Thank you so much. I don't know what I agree with you, Kiara. Yes. So let's talk about different medium.
Well,
media mediums.
before we move on, if I may jump in
Yeah.
real quick, Nakeisha. So you're talking about kind of like with a brief, and you guys are the subject area experts on the creative execution. And if a client ever is wanting to, force your hand and say, well, no, I like it this way, right? And if you know deep down that does not do the service to the original brief, what is always important to remember is you have to convey context into why that's scene or cut or jingle or whatever the client's having heartburn over. You have to provide context of why it doesn't meet the brief, it doesn't meet the concept, it doesn't work, because ultimately the way most clients think in terms of like business owners and people of the real world, they don't think in the creative sense, and they don't understand why something won't work. They won't understand why you can't fit a 60-second ad in 15 seconds. They just won't ever get it. So you have to provide that context, and sometimes you ultimately have to show them and say, okay, well, if we did it this way, then we're going to have to lose X, Y, and Z, and this is going to have to change. And you have to really be clear into why something doesn't work, which is why it's always important to have that brief up front, because you can pull that out and say, well, you're saying this to me now, and this the creative execution fits the brief, but you're saying this now, but that wasn't a part of the original brief. Is the brief changing? And at that point, you can have that conversation with them, and then you can have that updated guide rail to execute against on. So it's all setting the expectation as you kind of work through a project.
Yeah, that's awesome. Such a good point. So yeah, as we were gonna move on to medium matters. TV is different than Facebook, different than TikTok, different than radio. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so gone are the days of just kind of coming up with a TV ad, putting it on TV, and watching your sales go up, right? So in the world of today, you still have TV and you still have radio, but now you have all these new channels in new ways of reaching customers. You have Facebook, you have Instagram, TikTok, all the other social networks, Twitter, so on and so forth. You have online radio like Pandora and Spotify, and you still have like billboards and other kind of traditional ways of reaching people. And what's that done to the advertising and marketing industry is we have to do much more due diligence in catering the creative execution to fit that specific platform. So we can create a really great TV ad that will really fit on TV ad, but ultimately a TV ad is going to perform very poorly on Facebook or on TikTok. And you can clearly see as you kind of go through your feeds on each of your social media platforms, what brands understand that and what brands don't, because they look like ads. And with today's marketplace, what it is, you have to cater that creative to that specific platform and make it look like an organic post. Otherwise, your conversions will suffer and the effectiveness will suffer. So when we're talking about the briefs originally, as you kind of challenging your clients or whoever as you fill out that brief, having a firm understanding of what their expectation is in terms of what assets you're delivering to them is so important, because ultimately you don't want to build a treatment around Facebook ads and then it ends up, well, they actually need a TV ad also as well, because that's going to really influence the creative execution, your budget, the scope, and all the different bits and bobs that go into producing anything. Yeah.
What are some differences between like what works on TV versus what works on Facebook versus, let's say, what works on YouTube?
Yeah, so TV is still much more in that storytelling world, right? So when you're watching TV, putting aside DVRs and people fast forwarding it, they're much more engaged in the TV show or program that they're watching, and they are watching their programs that are like TV shows, your typical things that you see on TV, right? And all the ads around there are very storytelling. So on TV, you can be much more, you can tell story and you can really kind of drag on and be much more emotional with it. Whereas on Facebook, you have 2 seconds before they scroll away to really land your brand. So you have to like almost front end your brand mark when it comes to like Facebook, whereas TV, that can come at the end. And similarly, like with TikTok, for example, again, like you have to you have to have like some sort of jolty motion at the beginning, whereas TV, that'll just make people nauseous.
Yeah,
So
it's how long you have to catch people's attention, essentially.
Yeah,
because the target audience for Facebook is even Facebook, they have a bit of a longer attention span that let's say Instagram or especially TikTok, and YouTube is a little more like, closer to TV. Maybe not as long, but closer. So it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like splicing a song together. You people in music production will understand this. You've got your 60-second version of the song versus your 30-second versus your 15-second. And as you get shorter and shorter, you just bring the key changes closer and closer together. So maybe in your 60-second, it takes, a little bit longer to get to that crescendo. Whereas in your 30-second, it's a shorter time. In your 15-second, it's, very close to the intro is the crescendo of the song. So yeah, that's kind of how it works in my brain.
And in addition to that, like audio is a huge portion of that as well, right? So with TV, you have the benefit of using visuals as well as audio stimulation to get people to understand your brand marks and your message, right? Whereas with Facebook, the mass majority of Facebook users and Instagram users scroll through their feed with their sound off. Yeah. So if you develop a concept that heavily relies on dialogue or voiceover or any kind of like audio cues, it's going to fall flat on Facebook because you have to be very visually driven within Facebook. And if not, you definitely have to have subtitles within Facebook. Yeah. That's just another kind of consideration and difference between the two.
So logistics of working on set. I want to go over this really quickly, just so we kind of know how to have some people skills when it comes to sort of, client and director relations, or actor client director relations. So sort of like some set decorum. Because I had a bad experience on set once where I was almost blacklisted, but we won't talk about that. So how is it on set, sort of working with the agency, the client and the director? What's the like relationship between those guys?
Yeah, so how we've done it in the past, and I can only kind of speak to my experience, but obviously you have the director who's on the set, like talking to the talents, directing everybody over where we're filming, whereas the client is over in Video Village, and with us is the agency, as well as any kind of creatives, and then the producer is also there as well. So as we watch scenes, watch things unfold, if we have any kind of feedback, we discuss as a group over in Video Village, and then the producer then relays that to the director. And then as we kind of move throughout the set, the director ultimately will come over and discuss, how are you guys feeling? I think we can do this, and this. And overall, it's a very kind of collaborative process. But I know that some clients aren't necessarily as in the weeds, if you will, as we are. So some people you'll find that are very kind of handoffish, and some people who really want to be, in the know of everything. So it's really good to kind of set that expectation with whoever you're working with up front, because otherwise you're kind of setting yourself up to disappoint them if you're not meeting their expectations. And you can't know their expectations unless you ask for them.
Yeah, be very clear with the client, so you can know what you're doing, but you have to also learn, the client, which could be your, the company you're working for, or, whoever.
Yeah. And ultimately, all y'all on the call are artists, right? And you have a vision, you have a treatment that got signed off. That's what you guys are executing on. But the client is there to look on it on behalf of the brand, and making sure that the way it's being articulated is representing of the brand. Making sure that they're saying, well, hello, Winn-Dixie, making sure they're taking off their sunglasses all at the same time, making sure that the check mark is in view, looking at all like the brand cues throughout the ad, and as we kind of film, just to make sure everything is tightened up. So there's always a really fine balance between executing the art of it, and then also meeting the needs of the clients, because ultimately you can make a really, really beautiful ad or beautiful, song riff or whatever. And, but if it doesn't need, do what the client's going to need, they're not going to hire you again, because it's not going to execute what they're wanting it to do. So it's always good to kind of have those conversations, set that expectation, have that context as you kind of work through any project.
So in about 60 seconds, let's go over the steps of developing an ad. So it has like a start with the brief.
Yeah. So before anything, you got to have a brief. You got to know what you're doing, right? And then once you lock in a brief and have a signed off brief, at that point, you can develop a treatment and lock in a creative concept and execution. Then you can lock in your storyboard and scripts and kind of get the general premise of the ad signed off. Then you start your pre-production. So and that's how I defined all like the logistical stuff of any kind of shoot. So after the concept is locked, that's when you start all the pre-production. Then you ultimately shoot, right? So it's the day you shoot, you kind of get all the content that you need. And then once after that, then you move into post-production, and you have, your first draft be delivered, and you have a back and forth with the client and the director, and you review and receive feedback, and you have a couple of rounds of back and forth. And then once you picture lock it, say, yeah, everyone's happy, let's picture lock it. Then the ad will go into coloring and sounds, and any kind of final tweaks in terms of polishing and all that kind of good stuff. And then the final spot is sent for approval, and pending your client is not terrible, they'll approve it, and then you're able to traffic it to the stations. So that's a media term. So that's when you actually send it to the TV stations and the radio stations. You traffic it out to the stations, and then you're done, right? It's on air.
Miriam is asking, where does the budgeting happen?
So the budgeting happens within the brief. So so within any kind of project, we have a set dollar budget and say, this is our budget that we can spend to produce that ad. And the way we, Winn-Dixie sets that budget is we look at our media of where this ad and this campaign is going to be running. And the generally accepted rule is 80-20. So you never want to spend more than 20% of your entire media budget on production, just to make sure that you're not over investing in production and making a really robust ad, but it's not getting seen by anyone. So we want to make sure that the budget is set. And at that point, once they have that gross budget, when you go through treatments and through pre-production, that's all kind of bidded out, and making sure that you stay within that guardrail. But it's important to have that budget as part of that brief, because as you make your treatment, your concepts, your executions, you want to make sure in your back of your mind that you're able to execute that within that budget. So, Winn-Dixie can never afford to take a trip up to the space station and film a commercial up there. So the concept could never have included that. But that's kind of like setting that expectation at the very beginning, so you can make sure you develop a treatment that can fit that budget.
If you ever do, one of my instructors at Full Sail taught the people who filmed the Hubble 3D. He taught them how to film in space. James L. Nyhouse.
Everyone, Nakeisha.
Yeah, I know. So John wants to know what came after the brief. Also, I sent, just copied and pasted all the steps in the chat. But after the brief, what's the next step?
After you brief, then you develop your treatments and you lock in your concept.
Okay. And execution. So, okay. So then that's sort of when you actually get the ball rolling towards production. Does that answer your question, John? Where is John? I don't even know. Oh, there he is. Does that answer your question? Kind of. You're muted. I can't hear you. What? Thumbs? Yes? No? Maybe so. 99.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. And so does anybody have? Looks like Patty has a question. Go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, I know that we're trying to get ready to leave, but I have a question about back in the beginning around with the briefs and your client. What if, you go through the brief, the treatment, everything, you're about to shoot, and your client decides they want to do something, like you said, totally different, and you try to tell them, but what, at the end of the day, how can you, so you don't get not called back to direct or anything, film again, let them know that this, what they want to do, absolutely will not work. What if they are dead set on keeping what they want to do, and in your gut, whether you're a seasoned director or brand new like I am, or all of us are, how do we tell them nicely without cussing them out? I'm dead serious, because I'm a Cancer, but you tick me off one too many times, and I'm gonna say things I don't mean and not be. It's gonna be one of those. It's gonna happen.
That's when you have those discussions with your team, and you just vent, and you're like, I've done that so many times, just sitting at the computer, like, why are they ruining the art? Like, it was perfect, and you broke it. But Lyle, what's your 2 cents on that?
So do you still do what the client wants and just do it their way, and then get the backlash and it wasn't even your fault? Or can you say, okay, can you sign this and say it wasn't my fault, I did tell you?
Just don't put your name on it. I've done that before. Like, for me, like, if I do something that I know is really bad, I just won't, like, I'll do it for the client and get paid or whatever, but I won't like advertise that I did it. I won't put it on my website. I won't, like, you know what I mean? But what about you?
In my industry and kind of the the larger kind of scale of things, we can't move on to the next step without a signature. And within that, it has stipulations to where if a creative idea changes or the client requests a rewrite or doesn't like something that was previously agreed on, there would be supplemental charges associated with that. So it's all about setting that expectation and saying, okay, well, we're approved. That means we're locked in and we can't go back anymore. And as you kind of move throughout a project, it's about setting that expectation and having those receipts to go back on. And if things change, which things do, like we're in the retail industry and things change all the time, depending on the competitive landscape. And we've paid change fees and late fees associated with changing our minds, just to put it simply. And it's something that sucks, but ultimately it was our fault. We had the expectation set with us that if we changed anything, we would be responsible for that. And there's nothing we can do about it, because ultimately it's not anyone, when you guys are executing it, if it's meeting the original brief, they have no justice to stand on. But setting that expectation that if they do change a brief, it will incur X, Y, and Z charges, then that's really important.
Okay, thank you.
And what was it? Not Patty. Miriam wants to know roughly what was the cost of the 2 different ads.
That's a good question. Anyone want to guess? I'll take out talent fees from it, just raw production costs.
I don't know.
Just kidding.
I was gonna say like 100,000, 75 to 100,000. I don't know.
5 to 10,000.
Miriam guessed 30,000. 700. That's such a specific. That was my full sale. No, my full sale tuition was 75,000, but Ray says 750,000.
How about 50, 60,000
60,000
each?
Sounds like we're at an auction.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl ad was a two night shoot, and with that ad, it was $450,000 to produce. Wow. For the Christmas ad, that one required choreography, music development, because that was a track we had to do. We also did animatics. Does anyone know what animatics are?
Yeah.
So what is it? That thing? I forgot.
They're basically animated versions of storyboards. So it's like a rough animated storyboard. So we had to get that developed because of all the choreography. So that one was around 550,000.
Wow. Got to spend money to make.
That was low.
Winn-Dixie's got the money. Ray, did you have a question?
I did. I was curious to know how you come about coming up with a personal brand for yourself, because all of us are students, we're going to be going out into the world and we want to be able to market ourselves. We were getting ready to touch on it, and then someone asked a question. We went in a different route, and I wanted to know if we could circle back to it at all.
I'm glad you brought that back up. Go ahead, Lyle.
Yeah, so it's all about, what, say your question again.
I'm just trying, because I'm a film student, right? And I specifically a director, and I want to be able to brand myself to other people, so they are like, oh, that's the director I want to hire for my film, so how do I get to a place where I can brand myself to people to where they're going to be like, that's the guy I want to hire?
Yeah, so first and foremost, you need to look at building that emotional connection and setting up, on top of just practical. Yes, you can direct, but you're also a personal guy that people can relate to and have that emotional connection with. And as you kind of move throughout your career, you need to start kind of building those relationships and building that on communicating your brand to people, because as you meet people, you build your network, and more people know your brand and can speak on behalf of you. And building those relationships is key. It's a very, very small world. If I ever told my freshman self 14 years ago that I'd be speaking to you guys because Nakeisha, who I was playing with Final Cut Pro 7,
14 years,
playing with Final Cut Pro 7 with, reached out to me and wanted to talk to you guys, I would have said you're crazy. But well, that's the first thing is setting up that emotional connection, and then two is setting up the expectation and that consistency with it. So find your, as Nakeisha said, like find your niche, like what can you kind of exploit and be known for. And as you become really good at that specific niche, you'll find that your niche will slowly start having a halo effect, and you'll build a customer base that will come back to you time and time again and say, well, you did this for us last time and we really, really liked what you did. But hey, can you do this? And you'll find you'll have much more repeat customers that way, because you are really good at your niche and you're able to over deliver within that, and you build that customer base.
Yeah,
Does
for
that answer your
me,
question? Oh, go ahead, Nakeisha.
I was saying for me, also you can start marketing to that niche specifically, and that's where word of mouth travels around a lot, because they'll talk to other people in their same sort of category. That's basically what happened with me. Is I started editing for this one company, and then another company that was similar to that company was asking, hey, I have this thing that I need edited, do you know anybody? And they're like, yeah. And then it sort of just spidered off, until like now I edit like, event promos and recaps for different like events around Orlando. So I do a lot of like ministry events, like different like Christian ministry businesses and companies and stuff like that. So just I do a lot of like promos and stuff like that. But it's like finding your niche will really help you with like the word of mouth. So yeah, just as Lyle was saying, like, and just start putting out like, I started editing at my church. So I would edit these recaps over and over, like just different event recaps, and people would see it and be like, like I have, this that I want. A lot of times it was weddings, which I hate doing, but whatever, hey, can you do this for me? Because they wanted their wedding to be recapped, or, I've got a birthday party or whatever. And it just slowly started building to like where it got to bigger clients, and, clients that are in California or Australia. I went to Australia twice. So yeah, it's building your niche. Patty, do you still have your hand up? Because I don't know if that's from previously. Is that like a previous hand?
Yeah, I didn't know you can take it away. Hold on.
Oh, you just hit lower hand. It's fine. Tyson wants.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, Tyson wants to know if we can talk about setting boundaries with the client on a commercial turnaround. So can we talk about setting boundaries with the client on commercial turnaround? Okay, commercial turnaround, meaning like an actual commercial.
Yes.
Okay.
So like if a client wants you to shoot a car commercial and then wants you to return or give the footage to them or the video to them in a day or two.
I always I under promise.
Oh, those boundaries.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would be like,
Yeah.
impossible.
Mhm.
It's going to take 2 months. I always tell them longer, because then if I give it to them shorter, it's like, oh, look, you did it early.
Mhm.
But what about you, Lyle?
I would say setting the expectation is always key as early as possible. And what I find is the most beneficial, like coming from the client side, is having a work back schedule. So within the brief, have their target delivery date, say you need it by, X date. It's like, okay, well, if you need it by that date, then we need to lock in the scripts by this date. We need to start the concept by this start. Like you can take those steps of developing an ad and set dates accordingly, because you know how long things actually take to do, right? So if you're able to have that due date, everything else will fill in accordingly. And it's just about setting those expectations right up front.
Yeah, clear communication, and also like what's realistic for the time frame. You know, if you need it by tomorrow, well, you know, we're not going to have a day like a full day shoot. You know what I mean? We can maybe let's come up with a concept that I can just edit. Maybe we don't have to shoot anything. You know what I mean? Or like find out what they want and find out what's realistic to what they want. And then then they'll know if that's really what they want. If they're like, well, no, I actually really wanted this or really wanted it longer. Well, it's going to take this amount of time because that's how production works, you know? So it's just about, because the client, remember, does not know. Like I have clients all the time. They're like, oh, I just want a short little, you know, 3-minute edit or a 5-minute edit. And that's like a short little documentary. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's not an advertisement. That's not a promo. You know what I mean? So, because they don't know. So you have to sort of teach them. But, you know, being real nice about it. Like, I'm so excited about your product. I really want to tell your story. Let's do something that's going to work. I want to make sure this works for you. I want to make sure, you know, that people know about this. And if you're invested in them and in their product and what they're doing, if you can find a way to personally connect to it, like I don't do things that I like find morally wrong or like, you know, something that I wouldn't naturally promote. You know, if it's something that I would, you know, if I don't think it should be out there, I'll just turn down the job. You know, not saying like I'm super picky, but like you got to find a way that where you can personally connect with it, because that'll show the client that you're not just in it for the money, you're in it for them. And
that goes back to your brand too, Nakeisha, right? So as you do projects, the work that you put out helps define your brands. And if you do things that you don't believe in, then ultimately that's going to tarnish your brands.
Yeah, people tell me, I had my Australian friends, because they hired me to film both of their kids' weddings, like almost 2 years in a row. Like I'm here, and they're like, you know, they're like, well, nobody around here can tell a story like you can. So they literally, like, I'm really known for my ability to story tell the event or product or whatever. So that's part of my brand. Is I'm not, you know, doing a video for a product. I'm helping you tell your story. Like, what is the story of your product, your event, you know, so like, I'm helping you tell your story. Let's find your story. So that's like part of my brand. So going back to what Ray said, you know, find what's, you know, what is it that you're really good at, and try and brand that, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yes. And anybody else have any questions? I know we're a little bit over time. Sean, are you still here? Like, don't even. Did you walk away from your computer?
I feel like that's the last time I will be in the park for ever.
That is not your voice. Hi, Sean. Yeah, I just want to pick on him a little bit. I don't know if he's unmuted. But if we, do you have any more questions? Lyle, do you have maybe like an email address or something that you can leave in case they do have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, put it in the chat. And then everybody copy that down and let me know when you're done.
Thank you to you, everyone. Everyone is amazing.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
You're amazing. You're so
you're amazing.
Happy always. I love this guy.
To even have the opportunity, though, I almost died. Like I literally was 6 months ago in a deathbed. So like everything, even like walking down the street, I love it. Like, so to have an opportunity like this to get the knowledge for even to put me in that headspace to even be thinking about it, it's amazing. So thank you.
Yeah, man.
And I don't really know who the guest guy was, but
Lyle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's a longtime friend of mine. Like, he was
amazing, amazing.
Little 9th grade nerd that became something. He's a little engine that could. So
we all have it in us, right? We just got to reach it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, his email is in the chat. Everybody copy that down. And thank you, Lyle. You have helped transform young minds and not so young minds. So yeah, this will be recorded and posted. I have no idea where, but somewhere, probably on the Facebook page. I don't know. Oh, you're welcome, Miriam. Miriam, you're great. All right, so I gotta go do stuff with my life. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.